Tom, you're having a milestone birthday on May 30th. So before we start diving into your music, first of all, happy birthday and all the best in the world. And
Thank you.
second of all, how do you feel about turning 60 and about turning this, having
Well,
this?
it's really pretty crazy. I mean, I remember like the feeling here. Sorry, I'm closing the door of my office. Just give me 2 seconds here. Thank you very much. Okay, there we go. I remember the feeling, of I started playing guitar rather late at 17 years old. And I remember the feeling as I began practicing, 2 hours, 4 hours a day, sort of the rising tide. And people were amazed, like, oh, like what a hot shot young guitar player you are. And I still sort of look at the world with that kind of mindset, like I look at the first 60 years is just prologue. And, I'm still looking to play, the best guitar solo that I've played and write the best riff that I've ever written and play the best show that I've ever showed. That's the goal, each time out.
Talking about guitar solos, I was talking to Mark Knopfler the other day with whom you collaborated, and we talked about finding your own voice on the instrument. And he said it's imitation until you got something on your own. And I was wondering, in your case, as one of the most original but also inventive guitar players that I think the electric guitar has ever seen, did you have the same approach? Because some parts of your playing are pretty much weren't there before you did them, I suppose.
That's right. Yeah. Well, for many years, when I was practicing my 8 hours a day, I was trying to play like Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen and all of them. And for me, there was the breakthrough was the toggle switch on the guitar. Now, at the time when I was doing my practicing, the cool guitar was the Eddie Van Halen guitar that only had one knob, volume. And my guitar, which was a Gibson Explorer, was saddled with all of these very unfashionable knobs and switches and things like that. And one day I stumbled upon, working the toggle switch with the wah pedal, and all of a sudden the guitar sounded a little bit like a keyboard. And I didn't go like, oh, eureka, I'm now going to invent some new sort of form of playing. It felt weird to me and different. So I kind of had that in my back pocket, but there was a singular moment in the early history of Rage Against the Machine. We were playing a show with two cover bands, and each of those bands had a shredding guitar player in them, like a really technically proficient player in them. And I thought to myself, if we're playing some crappy gig, in the San Fernando Valley with two other guys who are doing the same thing I'm trying to do, I'm going to get off of that hamster wheel. And my practicing, I was practicing 8 hours. Before I was practicing 8 hours a day scales. After that, I was practicing 8 hours a day animal noises and robot sounds and hurricane noises and whatnot. And I really felt that I was finding my own voice on the instrument. It did take those years of amassing some technique in order to finally have the revelation that my own sound was worth pursuing.
As a player, you grew up in a time where, as you said, Eddie Van Halen was getting big, but also like Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai, all those immensely talented technical shredders. Sure. Did you think at that time that something was missing in rock guitar?
Well, the thing that I thought was missing in rock was it came more from the lyrical and the philosophical content than from the guitar playing. I love those guitar players, and I greatly admired them and tried my best to play their solos. But I was also a fan of like Gang of Four and Andy Gill and Alan Holdsworth, and people that's music sounded very much outside of the stereotypical shredder stuff. And that I would look to sort of make an amalgamation of having there be the ability to lean into technique, but not be dependent upon it. But for me, the revelation was, and one of the reasons why, I think that the music I've been involved in is, different from other music in a way, is I still have that shredder in me. I still have that gunslinger mentality in me. In the 90s, I think there was only one person playing guitar. Me and Mike McCready, maybe the only people playing guitar solos in the, in the 90s. because I love Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Randy Rhoads and all those guys, but at the same time wanted the guitar to find a new pastures to explore.
One of the guitar solo of yours that I always come back to isn't even by Rage Against the Machine, but I think one solo that represents everything you did so well is when you joined Springsteen in 2009, when you did the Ghost of Tom Joad solo for the first time.
Yes. Yeah.
And
yeah. Well,
I remember
that. I remember it. I'll never forget it. Bruce Springsteen's one of my favorite artists, and I have to give him credit for making that arrangement of the song and for his generosity in giving me 82 bars, over which to solo. And at the time I was really immersed in my acoustic career, my night watchman career, and I had not really played much electric shredding guitar in a while. And Bruce reminded me of what I can do, honestly, and like how guitar as can be celebrated in serious music, and Ghost of Tom Joad is a real highlight. And that's, I've taken that collaborative effort with him and the E Street Band, and I play that at most of my shows.
I've read in an interview that during the rehearsal you didn't even play that, but saved that as a surprise, which I think makes it even greater to watch it.
I did. Yeah. The rehearsal for me went a little shaky because he had changed the key of the song, which the E Street Band is very adaptable in a way that I am less so. And so, yeah, when the solo during the rehearsal time, I just I Chuck Berried my way through the solo at rehearsal. But then when the actual show came, you could just feel it building. And to Bruce's credit, he was just like, keep going. Like I didn't have anything prepared for that. And all of a sudden it just sort of went in all these kind of crazy directions and created, it was really one of those instances of 1 + 1 = 245.
So everything was improvised in that solo then.
Yeah.
It's amazing. The part where you go from the scratching to the melody that always gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I have to really say it sounds corny, but I always get goosebumps.
It's when you look at that video, you can see on all of our faces, we're all surprised by what's happening. And it was a really great moment. And I got to tell you, like, it's certainly one of the highlights of my career is, being able to having, played on stage over the course of a number of years with the E Street Band and Bruce Springsteen.
Coming back to finding your own style, how did you take it from there when you discovered what was like a stepping stone for you? How did you take it from there as a player?
Sure. Well, that's when I had that revelatory moment that I was now going to practice my eccentricities. I was going to practice sounds that I hadn't heard other guitar players play and make them the cornerstone of my work. So it was a balance between the unapologetic heavy riffs of Sabbath, Zeppelin, Deep Purple riffs, which are very old school in a way, but paired with this brand new deconstruction of the instrument. And I self-identified as the DJ in Rage Against the Machine. And so I began practicing, Jam Master Jay's, scratch licks and Crystal Methods and Prodigy's, textures. And I would sit in my living room, my Hollywood living room, and just listen out the window and try to approximate anything I heard, whether it was a helicopter, whether it was a dog barking, whether it was a lawnmower going by. And if you do that, you might not sound like a helicopter or a dog or a lawnmower, but it's going to push it just framed my playing in an entirely different way.
So not to see the guitar as necessarily a guitar in that regard.
Yeah, or to recognize that there's often a conservatism in guitar where there's an assumption that guitar playing has to be what it's always been. I looked at it like it's just a piece of wood with 6 wires and a few electronics that can be manipulated in a lot of ways. One of those ways is to play a G chord. One of those ways is to do two-hand tapping. One of those ways is to unplug the guitar entirely and touch the jack to a piece of metal to a piece of metal at the bridge while working the whammy pedal. I began just sort of like looking at the guitar, turning it inside out.
What's your guitar routine today when you walk in a project or when you don't have anything to do? Are you still playing in your leisure time, or are you still on
all the
search?
time. And now I play a lot with my son, Roman, who's 13 now, and he's I've been relegated. I'm now the rhythm guitar player in the family because he's a shredder, and so I just play chords. For the upcoming tour, we've the single for the summer is a song called "Soldier in the Army of Love," and when he was on tour with Rage Against the Machine in 2022, like up until that point, he had been a fan of hip hop music and K-pop music and stuff like that, but he went all in on sort of like riff rock. And I'd come back, it'd be a day off, and I'd hear him in the hotel room. I'm like, what riff is that? He's like, I just came up with. I'm like, can I use that one? So we have a collaborative effort that's honestly, it's one of the heaviest songs that I've ever done. It's awesome. There's a new Morello coming down the pike.
Oh, that's cool. Talking about the upcoming tour, on June 26th, you'll be playing a one-off show in Germany, or like the only show in Germany. Looking at your vast discography from Rage to Audioslave, Nightwatch Man, what can fans expect setlist wise?
Well, first of all, when we initially announced the tour, there was no German date, and I was just like, that is totally unacceptable. We have to, some of my favorite shows that I've ever played have been in Germany, and German fans over the course of 30 plus years have been so passionate about the many bands that I've been in. I've like some of my favorite Rage shows have been at the festivals there. Audioslave shows have been great. They're Prophets of Rage. I've done Night Watchman, intimate Night Watchman shows there. I have 22 albums on which to draw from, and we'll be drawing from most of them. One thing for sure, like I deeply regret that Rage Against the Machine was not able to fulfill the tour that we set out to do. And so I always let's just say I always look after the Rage and Audioslave fans when thinking about the set list.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. When Rage Against the Machine were at the height, and when you got really huge as a band and really changed rock music, one has to say it like that. What was your mindset at the time? Can you enjoy? Did you have a moment to smell the roses, so to say? Did you realize what's going on, or was it just one giant storm?
Yeah, it was just a giant storm, honestly. But I always would, like, I will say this, that the one thing that's always resonated, despite whatever chaos was going on, was the relationship with the fans. And there's nothing like standing on that stage and feeling that connection and that energy. And I've had the good fortune to feel it with a number of other my projects as well. But that was the thing that I could always count on, was that time, that hour and a half, 2 hours on stage, whatever it was, that there was that electricity, and it really feels like coming home. It really feels like that there's a lifelong friendship, almost it's a relationship that really deeply matters to me, between the people who the fans and friends and comrades through the years.
What's the most important qualities in a bandmate for you?
Oh, I mean, I think that there are. That's an interesting. Well, first of all, if the musical chemistry is not great, there's no reason to do it. So that's, I would say that is paramount. But secondarily, having to be able to enjoy the experience. Like when I tour, the band that I tour with now is the Freedom Fighter Orchestra, and we've, over the course of the last 15 years, we've played shows together, and I love the camaraderie, and I love like the sort of similar political perspectives, same taste in sports, and and social activities and whatnot, and that makes it a real joy. Like I really, really love touring with the Freedom Fighter Orchestra, and we had a great time in Europe last summer, and looking forward to doing the same this summer.
Can I ask you another guitar nerd question?
Sure. Sure.
We talked about your development of your own sound and of your own style. Let's talk about gear for a second.
Mhm.
You never appeared to me as like a gear snob, so to say. You always had your great instruments, but one always knew which guitar you had for what. You didn't seem like a cork sniffer, as they say in the equipment community. I was wondering if
Yeah.
I'm right with that. And
You're
what's
you're
your
100% right, and I know it's very disappointing for a lot of guitar players out there, but I've used this almost an identical, not almost, I've used an identical setup since around 1988. Same guitar, same amp, same pedals. I think I added the Digitech whammy pedal in 1991. And other than that, it's like I was practicing, going through last night what guitars I'm going to bring, and really there's the acoustic wise, there's the black Spartacus steel string, there's the nylon string, whatever it takes guitar. There's the Sendero drop D Telly, the Arm the Homeless, guitar from back in the day, Soul Power, and then I use a baritone guitar for a few of the Atlas Underground songs, and that's kind of and that's it. I'm very it's like my guitars are from the island of misfit toys.
But have you ever thought about, I mean, they're kind of rock and roll history, some of them already. Have you ever thought maybe to tour with a replica of them, or
You know what? It's funny. This is really the first tour where I've thought about that. Like if other people do that, I just sort of I look at them as, as colleagues in a way. And I suppose I could have a colleague who was a similar colleague, but I've had the same guitar tech since 1992, and we're a little family of guitars and techs and whatnot. I was thinking of maybe leaving Soul Power home this time, and because I have my my Fender Soul Power guitars, which are identical to that one, so I might bring that up. But there's really nothing like the. I do have a backup for the Arm the Homeless guitar, which is great, but unfortunately, right now that one's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
and still touring with the same amp rig too, the Marshalls?
Same, yeah. It's the Marshall 50-watt head and the PV cabinet. Actually, I think we might be bringing a different cabinet for this one because the PV one it stays here. Yeah, but it's the same. It's the same head that I bought in, like, all of my gear got stolen on a Valentine's Day in 1988, and I had a recording session the next day. So I went to the music store, the one music store where I could afford gear, and they had two amp heads. They had a Marshall 50-watt and like a PV solid state or something, and I kind of flipped a coin, and I got the Marshall, and from that day to this, that's the amp that I use.
What's your advice? Because we were talking about finding your own voice and about having your own approach to guitars. What's your advice to a young player who wants to find his own voice, which is something that's not easy necessarily on his instrument?
Yeah, correct. Well, people pick up guitars for different reasons. Normally, the reason you first pick up a guitar is you want to sound like the guitar players you admire. That's natural. That's what everybody does. And then at a certain point, and you're very pleased if you're able to do that. Then at a certain point, you have to decide whether it's enough for you to just be a musician, or if you want to take your chances at becoming an artist. Becoming a musician requires technique. Becoming an artist requires ideas. And that means really looking into yourself. Now, you may find that the true voice that is within you sounds exactly like Jeff Beck. And if that's the case, then you should follow it. You know what I mean? Or you may find that the voice within you, is like, for me, it was uncomfortable when I started playing with the toggle switch, because there was I didn't hear that sound on records. And so I'm like, that's not really okay, because that's not what guitar players do. I think Ace Frehley did it maybe once on a song, or somebody, Eddie Van Halen maybe did it once on a song. But like the idea of taking something like that and really making it the whole thing, like the corners, like I'm going to play song after song after song with this way of picking notes. That to me, I was only able to get there, frankly, when I had lost everything. I had been on a label before Rage Against the Machine, and we had been dropped. And so my idea that I was going to be successful was an impossibility. I won the lottery. I got a record deal. I had a miracle of a chance, and I blew it. So I might as well play what I want, and I might as well play what I like, since no one's ever going to hear it anyway. And that freed me from the constraints of the ideas of what maybe I should do or what I shouldn't do. Now, as a practical application for someone coming up, you don't necessarily need to sort of lose everything career-wise in order to find your own voice. But I would just say, if you're looking to find your own voice, really trust what you feel, what you love to play, and what sounds great to you, no matter what anyone thinks.
Tom, thank you so much. It's been a huge treat talking to you. Have a happy birthday. And
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see you soon, or we'll see you later. But I thank you very much. And again, happy birthday, 30th birthday to Rolling Stone.
Thanks so much. Goodbye. Take care.
Wiedersehen.
Bye.